Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome back to my channel, My Noahide Family. This is part 2 of the roundup of our recent conference we had in Australia, in Melbourne, just last week. And I have already done part 1, which was just a general overall roundup. But this next part is a little bit more to do with what the actual content of the conference was, and I can't do it all in one video, so I'll have to probably make another couple of videos as well to cover everything. Now, can I just say that some of the content that was presented to us at the conference, I am told it was recorded, and at some stage that will be released for people to watch. But in the meantime, I just want to give you a summation and a bit of an insight, perhaps, into how great this conference was for us and the way it affected us all differently, of course. But I want to talk about some of the content now that actually was discussed or presented or talked about. So this is just day 1 in this video, and so the content and the subject matter and that of the presenters was really very good. It started out that, first of all, we all had a program that was developed for the conference, set out daily, and day 1, 2, and of course 3, and conclusion. So it wasn't just it was well thought out and well planned, and it progressed very, very well. So let's just take a look. The presenters were excellent. Some of the speakers had to be via Zoom, and you can, for obvious reasons, you can understand why. But also we had some excellent speakers in the room as well who did a presentation. So what happened on day 1? That was the 6th of February 2023. Well, each day began with a half hour of prayer. Now, this was really special because the men went into a separate room and the women went into a separate room. This all took place at the synagogue we were at. The whole conference, everything took place there. And so we had a women's room and a men's room where we could spend half an hour every morning before we commenced our actual conference content for the day, and we were able to have meaningful prayer. And that was, for me, I'm just speaking from my point of view, was just the nicest, best, blessed experience, having just a few women, no matter how few, sitting together and having meaningful communal prayer together, quiet, contemplative prayer. It was lovely. One of the ladies, we talked about how we should sit or in the room when we were doing that, and I don't know, the word circle came up, but one of the ladies, thanks be to Hashem, decided to bring the matter up with Rabbi Cow, and he said, well, do something different to what you may have previously done in another faith. So we came up with the solution that we would have the square of prayer for us women, the prayer square. And that worked beautifully because we were doing something just for our one and only God. We were wanting to make it clear that we were only speaking to the one and only true God. No confusion, no nothing, just our Hashem. So that was a great outcome for us as women. I'm sure the men would have had maybe similar experiences, but I can only speak from how it was for the women in those prayer sessions. So that was really great. And that started our day off focused as well. We were all the excitement. You come in and then you give thanks to Hashem for bringing us all together, and then it kind of cleared the mind, and we were ready to start the day and absorb all the learning that Hashem wanted us to learn. So then after that, after 10 o'clock, then we would have a communal breakfast, which was lovely because a lot of discussion continued on then. Then at 10:30 we began other presentations, and these were from around the world. They were presenters on Zoom from around the world, and people who we knew would have value in terms of what they presented to us, how they described things, their journey, their stories, things like that, how their groups work. So there were many topics that were covered. And the one that started on the first day was about, for instance, Noahide networking, for instance, in Australia and Asia and New Zealand. So, you know, we're in this South Pacific type of area. How does that all work? So each of us, I gave a speech or a short talk about how we network at the present in Australia, how we manage to network with each other via social media. Some of us know each other personally, but the majority of our connections on a weekly basis or whatever are via the our digital internet platforms. But and then there was so that was what I spoke about, the importance of us keeping in contact regardless of whether it's in person or not. And then we had a wonderful man called Leo Yuwono, who is from Indonesia, and I'm going to talk more about him later. But he spoke about, he was a presenter in terms of his community in Indonesia. Now he has a huge group that he sort of administers to. He's sort of the leader of. And I'm going to come back to Leo Yuwono in another video, but it was a delight and an honour to have him in our group, because what he has achieved and how he goes about it is truly, we can take a page from his book. So I will do more about Leo later. Then, of course, we all broke for lunch at about 1:30. I tell you, we ate some beautiful food. Oh, yes, we did. I can tell you, I put on some weight. So we had a communal lunch, and then from 1:30 until 4:30, we had what we called free time. Now, this was free for the delegates to decide what they wanted to do, either alone and as an individual, or did a few want to go and do this, and another couple go and do this, or whatever. So it was completely at our the behest of our individuality what we did, and most of the time we filtered into smaller groups. Mostly it was the men did something and the women did something, but there were times when we mixed, and you know, there were men and women in a couple of different groups or whatever. It was just what we decided to do at the time. And I can tell you that there was never a question of what can we do next, because there was the famous Gull's bookstore to go to, which is just a delight. I mean, it's a gourmet of books and things that we would be interested in as Noahides and can't get anywhere else. So, you know, that was a popular venue nearly every day. And there were other venues that we visited as well. The men went to some things, the women went to other things, etc. But anyway, that free time was just that. We could decide to continue with whatever we wanted to, or go and look at something else. That free time could just be if you want to retire back to your room. We stayed in the hotel, which was just walking distance, a few steps away from where the venue was. So we could just go back to our room and have alone time and rest if you felt the need to. Then we all assembled again at 4:30 each afternoon, and that continued. That this is the first day. We did a lot more Noahide networking. It continued, and that then brought us to a Zoom presentation by a wonderful, wonderful man called Emmanuel Villegas from the Philippines. He has a large community of Noahides, and he, a delightful man. I've met this man in person previously in Jerusalem. An engaging man. He's cheerful. He's easy to listen to. You come away quite energized after you've heard what he does and how he does it and how far he has to travel, and his wonderful community. So Emmanuel is always a shot in the arm for us all, or especially for me anyway. It was, wonderful to have him speak. And then that wrapped up with a presentation from 3 speakers from Russia and the Ukraine. And these were very interesting presentations. In fact, we had to have a lady interpret for us, a lovely lady. Ina, thank you so much. If you're watching this, appreciated your input and help so much. Thank you. Ina was able to interpret and tell us what was going on. Now, that was a great eye-opener, I think. We all kind of were a bit, wow, like a deer in the headlights, so to speak. That was really a very sobering and enlightening presentation from the people that spoke. So that was from Russia and the Ukraine. Then at 5:30, every day you'd think after each session, can the next one get any better? And you know what? They were all special. They were all good. There was no one you could say, I think maybe this was the best, or everyone would have had perhaps a favourite that they got a message from. But I thought Rabbi Cowan presented this, Rabbi Dr. Shimon Cowan, and the topic of his presentation was the Noahide now and the Noahide of the future. And that is something that truly resonated with me, because I often think, where will all this go? Are we growing? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? I ask myself all these questions and I don't have answers for them. But I kind of felt much more relaxed and at ease and at peace after listening to Rabbi Cowan's presentation. Suddenly things started, things started to sort of morph into place a little bit. I was able to section things a little bit and not and shake off some of that confused view I was worrying myself with, about the future. Where is this going to go? Well, of course, Hashem's in charge, isn't he? Why should little old me torture myself? I should just get out there and go about doing the business that I can do. Hashem is in control. It was him that brought us all together in Melbourne. We all did our little bit, our contribution, but none of that gathering would have occurred. None of those fantastic speakers would have been able to meet with us online, on Zoom, etc., unless it had been the will of Hashem. So, everything is under Hashem's guidance. It's under his tutelage. It's under his motion of moving us forward. And so what are we going to be in the future? Well, simply we learned things in this conference that will help us move into the future. What do our Noahide brothers and sisters need? What is this message we need to keep passing on? What help can we do? How can we assist each other? How can we come together physically more? How can we be sure we're all on the right track? There's got to be guidelines and things like that in place. We have to have trust within the future of Noahides. So we the messages come and we sit back at the end of the day and think, wow, I didn't expect that. Now I understand. So what I'm trying to say, coming together, no matter how small the numbers, I mean, we had 12 active participants. There were other people there as well, but 12 active participants in the conference, delegates, I suppose is the word. And you know what? I would have been happy if only 5 turned up. I was delighted that we ended up with 12 because, as I've harped on before, we are so isolated, so far apart, just to get... So there was 12 in the room physically, but that extended to a lot of others thanks to Zoom, etc. Right. Now, then I just wanted to also remind you again that some of these recorded presentations will be made available on, I guess, YouTube, but it will take a little while to get all that done. That's a bit of work preparing those things. Now, the evening gathering of the conference delegates was to share a meal amongst ourselves. We could go out somewhere and eat, or we all found it very easy to share and come together because where our rooms were at the our accommodation, we're all more or less in the same one big corridor, one big section. All our rooms opened out onto this lovely extended sort of almost like a lounge room area in a corridor, and so we were all gathering there, and sometimes we had takeaway and other times we had something else, and it extended on into the night. We talked about things and reviewed what we'd already learnt that day. This went on every night. That was lovely, and that's where it was like we were all sitting around the family table. You know, it was, I could have, and there was lots of laughter and it was such a joyous event, but I could have just sat quietly in the corner and just watched and listened and enjoyed. It was lovely. I kind of, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience for me, and I know others said similar things, and I sort of felt we finally are together physically, looking at each other, you know, the warmth of each other's conversation and personality and things like that. So that was one of the nicest parts. We just all sort of melded together into one big... It was just like sitting around a huge family gathering where we'd been brothers and sisters for years. Nobody felt shy about speaking up. Nobody felt awkward or embarrassed, and even some of them people I'd never met before, you know, even on electronic platforms, that they were complete strangers, and it was just like, oh, you know, just felt we'd known each other always. So for me, that was just, I can't put it in words, it was just marvellous. But anyway, the evening was a time for us to share our journeys, ask questions of each other's, and we could each maybe give some advice or help people. So that to me was an extremely special time. And so I'd just say that, you know, this is an indication of what an action-packed conference it was. We really didn't have time to think about I might be bored or anything, because it just couldn't be. There was too much. It wasn't overwhelming because we had a smaller group, I guess. That made it that we could all just, you know, blend in together, and, you know, a few might do this and a few might do that, but it was all wonderful. It was the evening, the meals where we had to find, you know, group meals together, freelance sort of thing. They were just lovely, wonderful, unplanned and wonderful. So that's the roundup of part 2. And I will continue on. I just want to share the richness of this, of what we discussed and the topics and the outcome of just being all together. And thank Hashem for that. It was just a privilege to For me, it was a privilege to be in the room with all those people. It was lovely. Thank you, Hashem. Please take care and God bless.